Our story begins when we see a man sitting outside a huge mansion having an interview. He says that people kept asking him how he felt marrying into a royal family since he was an ordinary worker, but for him, all he felt was happiness marrying the love of his life. His name is Baek Hyun-Woo. In the next scene, we see a lady also having the same interview, explaining how she felt marrying an ordinary man. She then decides to narrate how she met him. Her name is Hong. She had just returned from her studies abroad 5 years ago. She joined as an intern in a department store called Queen, which was owned by her father, but nobody knew about it. Next, we see her in the company, kicking the photocopier machine, and all of a sudden, Baek Hyun-Woo appears and helps her out. He kept helping her the entire time since she kept on kicking it, and he was worried about the new intern being fired since even coworkers were now talking about her. Our MC couldn't take it anymore with the new intern and decided to warn her about her behaviors since she was always scolded by the bosses, and he was worried that she was going to get fired everywhere since she was lazy. He told her that even when he sees her being scolded, his heart jumps. She asked him why it jumps but failed to answer, and she told him to take his time. Later in the night, we see Hong outside Queen's department on the phone call, and suddenly our MC arrives and starts to tell her how he went to Seoul National University. His family is respected in the community, and they also have 30 cows. She was confused and told him to just get to the point. He told her that even if she gets fired, he was willing to take care of her, even though he always wanted a woman who's working, but for her, he was willing to work alone to provide for her. He concluded by confessing his love to her, and she was stunned, failing to say anything to him. He told her to take some time to think about it before giving him the reply. The next morning, Baek Hyun-Woo gets a message from Hong telling him to come out. He was surprised to see her visiting him with a helicopter. She asked him if he was just going to keep staring from a distance, and he then ran and hugged her. Back to the present, we see Baek Hyun-Woo's friend telling his fellow lawyers that Baek Hyun-Woo was going to divorce his wife and he needed an attorney, but they were all scared to help him. They wondered why he wanted to divorce her since she was rich, and he was living every man's dream, being the heir of the Queen department. His friend told them that the wife was a lunatic. The next morning, we see Hong in her office telling her workers to chase away all those small businesses in their mall, which were below the red bar. They told her that they wanted to, but her husband refused them to do it. Baek was in another meeting with his subordinates, and Hong's secretary just bumped in and told him the CEO summoned him immediately. At first, he hesitated since this was a bit insulting to just bump into his meeting without respecting him, but then he went to see why he was called. He arrived inside the office, and she told him to immediately dismiss the low businesses immediately, and it wasn't a suggestion but a command. After the meeting, he told her that they needed to talk. Next, we see Baek printing out a divorce paper. He receives a message from Hong telling him to meet her at her family's house. He went to her house and found all her family members present. They were all arrogant, including her little brother who told him to work for him on a certain project, which wasn't even in his line. Also, her father told him that he wanted a granddaughter from them, and he will name him with the mother's surname instead of Baek's surname. After a while, he went to talk to Hong in private and scolded her for not letting him make a decision on his own, but instead, her family always planning for him. He also told her to just announce to the media that even their relationship is not as healthy as they always talk about it during the interviews. Next, we see Baek with his friend, both drunk. Later, we see him walking on the street singing loudly while drunk. The next day, he goes to the jail to bail out his in-law, but fellow attorneys kept on talking about him as a man who cleans his in-law's mess. They concluded by calling him an embarrassment to the attorneys. We see him talking to a female prisoner before bailing her out, and she told him that she will revenge on her new stepmom since she was responsible for her real mom's death. She was arrested for attacking her stepmom, who was taken to the hospital for an entire month. Next, we see the Queen's house surrounded by the news reporters while cars were arriving at the house. We are told that they were going to hold a memorial service for the Queen's chairman's late wife.
We see the chefs preparing the food since the queens had a rule saying that all their sons-in-law had to prepare each memorial service, yet their sons didn't help them.
Next, we see the stepmom walking towards one of the family's daughters and tells her that she wasn't going to attend the service since they don't consider her as family. The stepdaughter tells her that she should since she has been living with them for 20 years.
Otherwise, people might think she shoves her and mistreats her. Before she could complete, her father came down from the stairs, blaming her for her brutal ways. The daughter told him that she didn't want to wear a hanbok during the service, but when he asked her, she said she was going to wear it. This made the stepdaughter furious and embarrassed. The maid told the daughter that the stepmom is indeed a sly one who wants her to be embarrassed in front of her father. During the service, Bam-ya, the daughter who was bailed, kicks the door while shouting that she had arrived. The father called Baek, blaming him for bailing her at the wrong time, and he should have waited for the service day to end before bailing her out. She again blamed her new stepmom for her mom's death, but later on, she was made to calm down by Hong. Baek goes to the counselor and tells him that he was under a lot of stress since he was living under the same roof with his father-in-law, grandfather-in-law, brother-in-law, aunt-in-law, and sister-in-law.
The doctor was praising him for being lucky to stay in such an extended family, but he told him that they always had dinner together every night without missing. The doctor also asked about his work life, and he told him that his wife was his boss, and his father-in-law was her boss, and his grandfather-in-law was the overall owner of the company. He was really fed up with the environment since they always ordered him around, and his wife, who had promised to never make him cry, no longer cared about him. The doctor asked him why he didn't then divorce her since that's what he wanted, but he told him he might lose his life since the in-laws, especially his grandfather-in-law, despise people who turn their back on him the most, and he had told him he will stab anyone who does it. After a while, they came out of the office, and the doctor promised to recommend something to help him. Next, we see Baek in the office talking to Grace, who's a friend of his mother-in-law. She tells him that Hong made a will, and he never included to give him anything, but all she wanted was to just use him as a family dog. This shocked him. Later, we see him out of the office, and as he was about to enter the elevator, his wife arrived and in a loud voice she told him why he didn't pick up his phone and also let him follow him. He wanted to take him somewhere. This time around he refused, which shocked her. He gets his car and decides to visit his family. He is the youngest son. His mother prepared a meal for him since he was hungry. After eating, he sat down relaxing for a while. During the night with his family, he told his family that he was going to get a divorce, which shocked them. They asked him why, and he told them he wasn't happy. His father told him he wasn't happy either with his current marriage, but he focused on the little things to move on. He told them that he took his time thinking about it and he's going to divorce regardless of anything. As he was going away, his sister and brother took him out of the car and tried to persuade him not to divorce since it would bring shame to their family since they lived in the village. He blamed them for trying to use him to get money to satisfy their needs without even knowing what he's going through the entire marriage. He stood up and drove away. He went to his in-laws' house and went inside his safe, picked the divorce papers, and went to his wife's room. He knocked and entered the room, walked towards her while holding a paper. He told her he wanted to tell her something, and she also said she had something to say first. She told him she was dying and she's remaining with only 3 months. He was shocked. She then told him what he wanted to say. Since he was shocked, he quickly put the paper behind his back and started to apologize to her for not treating her well, and he then hugged her, saying he loves her so much. So guys, this is the end of episode 1. Let me know in the comments if you want another part. Don't forget to like and subscribe.